Hey, and welcome to Ruddle Me This. Once again, I am Taylor Ruddle, the Ruddler, here, your host for the podcast. And a really exciting episode we got today. A good friend of mine, Steve Wilbury. Steve is actually, do you know what? Steve gave me a little soundbite of his own interest, so I'm going to roll that now.
So my name's Steve Wilbury. I'm an international award-winning magician, and I have a podcast called Laugh, Cry, or Die that I host with Naomi Strain. It's all about living life with chronic disability and the horribleness of that, having some pretty black humor. And yeah, I stand up and do stuff.
Thank you, Steve. I met him for the first time a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, when I sort of did like a little bit of a mini audition spot on a national tour called Kids Day Out, which is like this very cool, like lots of charities and stuff support it. It is just go to the website, go to kidsdayout.co.nz, and they'll be able to explain it much better than I could. They just perform for children, and it's a very cool little show. Steve was a magician on that. I believe I might have been the first person to attempt doing stand-up to children on that show. Steve and I met and sort of stayed in touch. Turns out Steve lives up in Nelson, where I sometimes go up and perform. And in today's episode, Steve really wanted to talk to somebody about contact juggling. Now, we do get into this, basically what it is and stuff right at the start of the conversation, so I don't need to give too much of an intro. In a nutshell, it is a form of juggling that Steve, as we learnt about halfway through the podcast, is actually one of very few people who can do it in the world. So I was quite honoured that he wanted to talk about it on the podcast. So with that, let's just get into it. Welcome to the podcast, Steve Wilbury. Good morning, Steve. Welcome to the podcast.
Morning, Taylor.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Sun is shining. Beautiful.
That's what we want.
Everything's great.
So today we are this is a new kind of direction that we're pushing the Roddle Me This in, which I've been enjoying lately, is talking to people about, I suppose, niche or semi-niche interests or hobbies that they have. And you actually you sort of volunteered to talk about contact juggling with us today.
Yes.
So
it's go on.
Well, what I might do is I might say what I think I know about contact juggling first, and then you can correct me,
Okay.
And then we can kind of go from there and get into the nuts and bolts. So I have seen you contact juggling, and you're using clear glass spheres or balls, and they're all touching each other, hence contact. And rather than, I guess, like quote unquote normal juggling where you're throwing the balls into the air, you're sort of just rotating them around your hands, using some like very dexterous finger movement. And from what I can remember, the balls never actually come apart. They're always touching each other. And you can do some fancy moves. Like I remember you showed me one move that made it look like you had three hands when you were doing it.
Yeah. The one that makes it look like I have three hands.
Yeah, so like basically that's my interpretation of it. Is there anything that I missed that you know of?
No, I mean that's pretty on point. The only kind of slightly missed error would be the contact juggling. It's refers to the fact that it's in contact with your body. So most people these days, because I'm an old man, only do one ball.
Right.
And there's a whole style that's just using one larger kind of 120 millimeter glass ball where you're rolling it around your body and over your head and doing stuff. So
I have seen
stays
that before,
in contact with your body, as opposed to toss juggling, which is normal juggling.
Gotcha. And was it the kind of thing that you were doing toss juggling and got into contact juggling, or had you always been interested in doing contact juggling?
I've done like bits of toss juggling when I was younger, like at theater camps and stuff.
Yeah,
and then when I was at university, a friend was doing contact juggling. I was like, whoa, that's cool. And then she took me to her juggling club where contact juggling happened as well as regular juggling. They're all kind of under the same nerdy umbrella.
Yeah. Does it take, like, for example, I know when you're trying to learn how to throw juggle, they recommend you like start with a sock balled up and then, graduate to 2 balls, then 3 balls. Is it the kind of thing you have to learn one at a time, or can you just dive into doing like
You,
I think I've seen
it
you do like
is.
yeah.
I can so I can do I can do like a couple 10 ball formations, but
Wow.
eight's kind of my limit most of the time.
Yeah.
With once you get above eight, you kind of need other people to put the balls in place for you.
Right.
Um, that only tends to happen at like 4 o'clock in the morning with sleep deprivation at juggling conventions. But anyway,
You got to push your
sorry, what
limits.
was the question again? You're asking me, can you just start with one?
Yeah, how
You
do you
have to
learn?
start with
What's the
one.
process of kind of do you need to work your way up from one or can you just dive into like three or four?
Um, I guess you could start with the one that makes it look like I have three hands is a 3 ball move.
Yeah.
And I guess there's no reason you couldn't just start with that specific move.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that you learn with 1 ball because some of contact juggling is mime and movement, and there's stuff that you kind of need to learn about the illusion nature of the ball
Mm.
before you move on to the big ones.
Because it's a very
Contact juggling is the
mesmerizing
hardest thing to learn
it's a very
by a
mesmerizing looking
long
act, isn't it?
yeah, and
You kind of
that's the whole one.
yeah, you want it to be like sort of fluid and smooth and that kind of thing, right?
100%.
Yeah.
It's the fluidity and like the fact that people often can't even tell what they are if they're actually bubbles and if they're like clicking against each other or like making noises and stuff, then that
Yeah.
breaks the whole illusion. So it's a really fine level of control between once you're able to do the moves and then being able to do them like perfectly
Yeah.
that kind of separates the men from the boys, if you know what I'm saying.
So what I was going to ask actually was related to the do they make any noise? Because I found it quite funny when you see did you ever go and see one of those like stunt shows at like Warner Brothers Movie World or anything like that where they'll be
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
doing cowboys and stuff like in a show like that, if you're in the grandstands, you don't hear much of the uh, like the actors grunting as they do flips and stuff like that. And I just always
Yeah.
assumed it was done in silence. But then anytime I've seen them close up, you actually hear them like quite loudly go like hurt and stuff as they do these
Yeah,
flips.
it's hard work.
And like I've watched pro wrestling up close quite recently for the first time, and
Mm.
I didn't realize how loud the sound of just their feet hitting the floor when they get knocked down and stuff like that was. And
Yeah.
it is funny that just that little bit of distance that stops you from hearing little noises. And so I was going to say, when you're contact juggling, are the balls clanking together? But you just answered that question by saying no. The point of them is not to do that.
Yeah, like I mean, I think there's a couple ones where I still have some few clicks. If it depends if I'm like in training, like if I've got a big show coming up or something and I'm really like drilling it, then it's
Yeah,
silent. But there's a few ones that if I let it relax, they kind of do a couple tinks every once in a while, which when you're on stage you can get away with.
yeah,
But if you're doing close up and walk around, which is what a lot of contact juggling gigs end up being,
yeah. Of course,
then that silence I think is really important.
for sure. Like
Um,
that's kind
yeah.
of adds to the mystique of it, and that because I guess
Exactly. It's when
you almost want people not to know how you're doing it, right?
yeah, it's like got this weird kind of like I mean, God, it depends how nerdy you want me to talk, but it has this
I want you to go as
really
nerdy as possible.
you want me to go, yeah, all right, nerdcore. All right. So it's technically a branch. So I've dubbed it illusional manipulation, which is a sub branch of graphic manipulation, which in itself technically encompasses juggling and other movement disciplines where objects are being manipulated in a predefined space or pattern.
So I guess we'll pause that for a second. You've just given us the definition of manipulation. That would be like a magic uh, piece of terminology. Is that right?
So yes and no. So the term is illusion that I use is illusion of manipulation. So in
Yes.
magic, you have sleight of hand,
Yeah.
which is a move that the audience probably won't see.
Uh-huh.
Whereas with contact juggling, the audience sees every move that you're making, but they still cannot make sense of it.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel when I watch you do it.
Yeah, like there's no hidden moves. You know you see the hands moving around, but
Yeah.
your brain is just like "Bah, wah."
Yeah. I was going to say as well, how deep into the secrets of the magician do we want to get with this? Like,
Oh, I mean, there's nothing like the only thing that really protects the secrets of a magician is international intellectual property laws.
ah,
Um, well, that's sorry, that's that's not really correct. But
Okay.
um, you know, there's there's nothing you can't learn online in
Gotcha.
terms of contact juggling. So my
Uh-huh.
friend Drew wrote the book Multi-Ball Contact Juggling,
Ah.
um, which you can buy. But if you meet me, I'll teach you. But just like with magic, if you get to know a magician and you're like, hey, I'm into magic,
Yeah.
and then they'll be like, oh, cool, here's a move. And then you
Yeah.
learn like the first move, and you come back, and you're like, hey, I learned that move. They'll
Yeah.
teach you the next one, right?
Gotcha.
When I teach contact juggling at conventions and stuff, I'm
Yeah.
like, you will not learn these moves today. It will take you several weeks of practice and diligent training to learn them. And then if you've learned them, then come back to me and we'll work on refining them.
Yeah.
Um, like it is hard, but with all these things, if you can show that you're interested, most of the time, the people who are really, really good at it are only care that someone else is interested.
Yeah.
They're like, I've spent my life trying to make this cool. You also care. Here, take all of this knowledge, please. I've been
So
trying to give it away for years.
so is contact juggling the way you do it? Is that fairly rare in the world of magic and contact juggling?
Yes, yes.
Really?
Contact juggling is yeah, very.
Oh.
Um, so I kind of have this really weird pedigree
Oh. We love
where
a pedigree here.
I'm like a hot bitch. Um, so
He means that in the dog
right.
terminology, not
Well,
misogynistic for anyone listening.
if you want to breed with me, I've got the paperwork.
Your offspring would have tremendous contact juggling
Dexterative,
abilities.
dexterative potential,
There you
I
go.
think
Yeah.
is the technical term for it.
That's your Tinder
Um,
profile, isn't it? Our
yes,
offspring would be
that's my
sensationally
that's my
dexterous.
that is my grinder username is what that is. Dexterous
Sensationally
potential.
dexterous. So okay,
Sensation.
I didn't realize how rare of a
Anyway, sorry, we are talking about my
yeah,
amazing pedigree.
yeah.
Sorry, what were I cut you off.
Well, just yeah, I didn't realize how I didn't realize it was an uncommon ability. It makes sense given that like it looks really hard to do. Um, and the fact that it, like you said, there's no tricks to it. It's just you have to be. It's just really training and skill. We were talking
Hmm.
about something about how rare it is, but I'm not sure if you had somewhere you were going
Yeah.
to go onto for that because then you said the thing about the
So yeah,
pedigree.
so just with the rarity angle, so
Yeah.
there was this really bizarre scene in London in the early 2000s that was kind of tied to the squatting scene a little bit and to the underground party scene a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah.
And for like this brief moment, juggling was really like hip in these
Okay.
scenes, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I kind of intersected with that. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I worked at the juggling shop in London,
Oh, that's cool.
and the manager of the shop lived in a squat. And I would go to the squat for Sunday roasts, and then sometimes we'd go to our friends' squats and have parties and hang out and juggle. And
Gotcha.
that was just like what we did, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of that was contact juggling
Ah.
was coming in, and there was just this weird confluence of like 20 people that
Yeah.
really got into contact juggling, and it kind of spread out. And I lived up the hill from a guy named Drew Batchelor,
Hmm.
who wrote the book Multi-Ball Contact Juggling. And when he was writing the book, he taught a series of 6 lessons to get the pedagogy of how to teach into the book, right?
Right.
And I took those lessons along with 7 other people, none of whom contact juggle. Drew still doesn't contact juggle.
Huh.
And the number of people who've been doing it since that time that are active performers is almost zero. I've only met
Wow.
a handful of people and I knew literally all of them because we all hung out on one website. Well,
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
There was contactjuggling.org and the home of poi message boards. This was pre-social internet
Yeah. Yeah. Of
as well.
course.
Um, and there was this confluence, and it was for the first time people all over the world could share. So you'd have the one guy in his bedroom talking to the other one guy in his
Yeah.
bedroom
Yeah.
across the world. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, so that's kind of where I started, and I've tried to quit performing a number of times, but have been unsuccessful. And uh, for 20 years, this has been in my pocket, and because it is so difficult,
Yeah.
those 20 years have kind of given me an edge that I haven't met yet. I've met in the 12 years I've been in New Zealand, I
Yeah.
have met exactly one juggler, two contact jugglers who I could like jam with, who we
Wow.
were like, oh, here's a trick, here's a this, and here's a that.
That's wild.
So yeah,
I did not realize how rare of a talent it was. It does make
I'm
sense,
a
but
spotty bitch.
to me who sees magic, it all looks hard. So I just assume like, oh, there'll be other people that can do that. I was gonna say as
Yeah.
well, like is this a skill that you have to train regularly and to kind of keep your edge, or is it like once you've got it down, you've kind of got it down?
Yes, and it really depends on how much you've got it down.
Yeah.
Like it's like I said, even with me, there's a line between like complete perfection
Hmm.
and being able to do it
Of
that
course,
if
yeah.
I'm not in training will get looser.
Yeah.
But once you can do a palm circle, like or the one that makes you look like you've got three hands, you can do it.
Right, right,
It
right.
takes so long to engrave into your
Of
brain, it
course.
doesn't really.
Right, right. I was going to ask as well, I imagine you probably have different acts that you do as a magician, but how much, like, would this be your like your closing bit, or where does the contact juggling fall within your act when you do a show?
Like it's kind of about three-quarters of, it depends on what show I'm doing.
Right, yeah, that's what
It
I
can
figured.
be,
You'd have multiple ones.
it's normally I put it kind of three-quarters of the way through
Uh-huh.
because it's really visually impressive.
Yeah,
It can work good as an opener, as like a demonstration of skill.
yeah.
Um, but it's so one of the things, there's this Swiss kid whose name I can't remember, but he was
Hmm.
talking about contact juggling and how difficult it is for the audience to perceive because the sphere is such a simple object
Yeah,
and the shape doesn't even claim to have a color. It's completely transparent.
yeah.
So you have this simple, undefinable object that people often don't know how they're supposed to feel.
Mm,
Am I mesmerized? Am I what the fuck is actually going on?
yeah,
So it can be kind of hard to fit into a wider program.
yeah.
Um, I do it as a palate cleanser after my needle swallow.
Right.
So I do the needle swallow, which is gross, and then I say, now let's do something pretty to like
Yeah,
counteract.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, because it is people are really confused by it,
That's
which is
very
fun. But
that's so
can I just say one
interesting.
more thing and then I'll let you
Yeah,
come
yeah,
back?
please
So
go ahead.
with like the presenting it,
Hmm.
so much it's presented just as here's a person doing this thing, right? And it's
Right.
not motivated by any like plot or anything. It's just someone on a stage twiddling some balls around.
Yeah.
And when you have this incomprehensible illusion with no plot or format around it, it gets extra confusing. I think if you could do something cool with a reason these were bubbles and why this existed or whatever,
Yeah.
then that would make it easier. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, with because I'm fascinated about the structure of magic shows because a lot of it is in kind of the presentation of how you present all of these tricks, isn't it?
Mm.
Like you need a kind of not necessarily a narrative, but you need a like I'm not quite sure how to articulate what I'm saying here, but you need some some like
So I think the word you're looking for is motivation.
yeah,
So
maybe.
it's something that gets used a lot in improv.
Right.
And like if you're making up like an improv scene, right?
Uh-huh.
You can make someone believe that you just picked up a mug with a lobster in it if
Right.
it's motivated, if there's a reason for that to happen.
Yeah.
But so much of magic, especially older, like 20th century magic, is like, here I have a box. Why do you have this box? Why is this box there? Why are you telling me it's an ordinary box?
Yeah.
Why do I need to know that?
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey, I got these shoes, and you pull the shoes out, and then you've got a trick involving the shoe, or you put them on or something,
Yeah.
it's got to have a reason to exist.
Yes. Yeah, you need almost like context for all of the tricks you're doing. Otherwise, it's just a series of like visually impressive kind of like tricks. Yeah.
Exactly. And there
Um,
is like, there's an amount of navel gazing with graphic manipulation, and like there's other things like hoop isolations and batons, and it really mixes a lot with dance and like mime and stuff. That's art. That's the thing I want to present. But if you're thinking I want to entertain people, then I really think you need this other context around it.
yeah, that's what takes it from just like it's like takes it from a good show to like a great show, right? Is the kind of
100%.
the emotional investment, because that's a big part of magic as well, would be the audience being emotionally invested in what you're doing, right?
Well, yeah, yeah. And it's a lot of times people come to or present magic in such a way that they come off as was a prick. And
Right.
and the it's sorry, I just got distracted by my wife returning with a coffee machine. Cool.
The beauty of
So
live
now we have one of
podcasting.
those. Um,
I was doing one the other day about ghost stories, and the gas man
hmm.
knocked on my door really aggressively and just about gave me a heart attack. So yeah, it's I love podcasting.
uh,
But yes, back to your
yeah, it's
back to what you're saying.
such a good art form.
The
We were talking about like motivation and magic and
yeah, the
structure and
emotional, yeah.
stuff. Like one thing that I really want to do is a routine where I blow a bubble and then I turn that bubble into a contact juggling
Oh,
ball.
that would be dope, yeah.
So then it's like the ball is a bubble,
Hmm.
and then you have a framework to hang a plot on, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Instead of I have this weird crystal object that you've never seen in your life before,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna twiddle it around and look how cool I am.
Hmm.
But that's where a lot of magic shows, come from that. The conceit being, I learned a cool trick and I'm cooler than you.
Yeah.
Whereas really great performers, I think the conceit really should be like, let's play and have some fun. Like if you watch like Harry Anderson,
Yeah.
he does
Oh, have
the
I? No, sorry, have I?
opener. Do you know Harry Anderson?
I may have. Did he
Anyway,
ever?
he was
Yeah.
a.
Go ahead.
Oh, can you hear that kettle?
Nope.
Okay, sorry, my
We're all
wife's
good.
boiling a jug. Um, so Harry Anderson's opener is a three-card Monty trick,
Right.
but it's a three-card Monty trick where nobody loses. And he's like, "Hey, it's over here. Look at this thing. Look at that." And the whole point of it is that you're having fun.
Uh-huh.
Things are changing. Let's have a laugh.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know. Whereas if you have a trick that's like, "Oh, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. You're
Right.
wrong. I'm smart.
Yeah.
You're wrong." People aren't going to want to invest in that.
No,
Get the
not at
fuck out of here,
all.
you prick.
Yeah. There was this old thing you used to see in magic. I guess it's not done so much anymore due to just the whole idea of cultural appropriation, but the magician would be like, I studied for 7 years in the mysterious Asia to learn this
Oh God.
disappearing box trick or something. But like,
Have you ever heard the story of Chung Ling Soo? I
I
think
don't
that's
think
his
so,
name.
no. I don't think so, no.
So Chung Ling Soo was a white guy
Oh
who spent
no.
his entire
Oh
career
no.
pretending to be from China,
Oh
wearing big
God.
Chinese robes, and I'm pretty sure that's his name. I could be wrong.
I get the
But
idea,
anyway,
yeah.
this you get the idea. He wasn't the only person to do this back
Of
then, but he
course,
was the
yeah.
most famous, and he would never speak.
Yeah,
And so the presumption was that he didn't speak English,
of
and he would
course,
just
yeah.
do these mysterious tricks.
Yeah.
And one of his tricks was the bullet catch,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And he got shot in front of an
Oh
audience. And the
no.
only thing anyone ever heard him say was, something's gone horribly wrong
Oh, I
in
have heard the
this.
story. Yes.
Yeah, and then the curtain went down.
Wow. Does that happen at, I imagine magicians get injured quite a lot on their shows, but is death
Uh,
super common?
only with the bullet trick.
Yeah. You're kind
I
of
mean, sword swallowing is not really a magic trick.
that's another one of those things that's just a human ability, because I think I imagine magicians hate people bringing up the prestige, but I think
Oh, I
that
love it. It's a fantastic film.
okay, well then I'll I'll continue talking about it then. They just talked about, and the thing of the theme in that movie was the fact that a lot of these things that appear like tricks are actually just the result of kind of training and sort of almost putting your body through um
Hmm.
not hell, but yeah, putting your body through tricky Like there was that
Well, that's kind of where David Blaine went, wasn't it? He was like, I'm going to
yes,
just be in a box, or I'm going to be in an ice cube.
I'm gonna
And
stick an ice pick through my hand.
yeah, or like, I mean, like there's a trick where you can put a needle through your bicep
Yeah,
and
I've
it
seen him do
doesn't
that.
bleed. And yeah.
Oh,
And
it makes
he
me
did it for
cringe
like
so
Ricky
much.
Gervais. And Ricky Gervais was like, well, is that a trick or is that just fucking disgusting?
Oh yeah, I
You know? And
suppose.
I think that's,
Yeah,
you've really lost sight of why am I doing this? How is an audience benefiting from me being suspended in a box, or am I just wanting
yeah.
people to think I'm cool?
Because I
Which
suppose
is
it.
the magicians all over because magicians start as kids and then never
Yeah.
develop.
Oh, as in they get trapped in that kind of mentality of being 5 years old, doing
Well,
card
if
tricks.
you're an 8-year-old and
Uh,
you can blow a grown-up's mind, if you can, then like that does something to you. You think, oh, I'm obviously very smart and intelligent because I'm smarter than grown-ups. I surely don't need to change as a person. This is a
oh,
gross overgeneralization, and
interesting.
it's probably offensive to a lot of magicians. But I've been to conventions. I've seen these people. They exist.
Well, I think with any kind of performing arts, they do tend to attract people that maybe have a hole in their life that they're using the
Mm.
validation they get from their performing art to fill this hole rather than maybe seeking it internally. So I can definitely understand
Oh yeah.
people
That I
getting
mean
into
that's
magic for the wrong reasons, I suppose. I don't know whether that's
mm,
controversial to say wrong reasons, but
no, but I think that it's just the it's kids that they would have got drawn to something, you know?
yes,
They're
yeah.
they're looking for a way. And then I remember I was talking to somebody and they realized when they were like 17 or 18 that they were just getting ready to just go out.
Hmm.
And he was like, right, I've got my cards in my pocket, I've got my this, I've got my that. And he's like, what am I doing?
Ah.
I'm just going out. Like I don't need tricks to talk to people.
Oh, so he was just going to go out to a bar, but he thought I'll bring some
Yeah,
of
he
my
was just
magic
going
stuff.
out for a night and he was like,
Um,
I'm making sure he had all his magic stuff. And then he
uh-huh.
was like, I've been living a lie my whole life, you know?
Interesting.
And it's if you watch like magic training stuff, there's always a hot chick in the video, like
Right,
being the volunteer.
right, right. And that's a sort of thing to
And
get them to like this could be you kind of
this could be you in a bar doing a magic trick to a woman, and then you impress them. And then you have
oh
nothing else to go on and you're fucked.
yes, that classic sort of 90s advertising, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was this company called Illusionist back in the day who had
Uh-huh.
some really quite tragic videos looking back.
Oh no. Um, I wonder as well if people might, because I would imagine for a lot of people, it would be easier to just show them a magic trick and then not have to talk to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it's like what it like, if I'm working walk around or whatever, again, be like, here's some tricks. See you later. And then
Yeah,
you've got something fun to talk about. I'm
yeah,
not like,
yeah,
here's some tricks. Now I'm gonna hang around and like, so you guys got kids?
yeah.
What about the sports?
What do you feel about the
Who
local
likes the
election coming
sports?
up?
Yeah.
I was
You
going to ask.
know,
I was going to ask you as well
hmm?
when you would have presumably done corporate performances before, be it magic or
Yeah.
stand up.
Hmm.
Um, have you ever had the guy? Yeah, it's usually a guy that heckles sort of throughout the performance and kind of wants to be like a part of it, and then they're always the one that come up and try to talk to you afterwards.
Yes. They really want to be involved. Or
And yeah,
I've also with it's funny with magic as well. And this is, I think, where you have to be really extra careful with like the presentation part of it, is because
right.
it's so challenging to people. People get like angry
Huh.
about it, and then they'll be like, "Oh, you just did that thing." And I'm like, "No, it wasn't that." And
What?
they're
So
like, "No," and
they try to
you
expose your
want
tricks?
not that it's not so much like, well, yeah, some people will try and bust you in the middle of a trick.
Uh-huh.
Be like, "Oh, he put his hand in his pocket,"
Oh
and you're
man,
like,
that's
sometimes, and the worst part is sometimes you did put your hand in your pocket, but
yeah.
because this guy is not following the trick, he's just trying to fuck with you, then you're
Uh-huh.
like, but I
God.
find with my favorite thing is to deal with those people is the way Seinfeld does it.
Right.
and he just goes like, "Who hurt you?
Ah,
What's going on?
yeah.
Let's, like really turn that spotlight onto them
I've
and be like,
noticed
you
that.
want the attention? Here's the attention."
I had that happen once at a corporate we did where there was just a chatterbox guy. Wouldn't every
Mm,
time we say something, he would have a comment or something. And
yeah.
as soon as I asked him like, "What's your name?" he clammed up like he did not want to be like he didn't want to reveal anything of himself, I guess. So yeah, he
Yeah, they want to, they don't, yeah, and oftentimes, sometimes it'll backfire because they do want that attention.
yeah, that's true. It is
But
a
most of the
risk.
time, if you just come at them very genuine,
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
I'm worried about you. Normal people don't yell out in bars. What's
Yeah,
up?
yeah, that's really funny actually. I might start using that a bit more. It hasn't happened in a long time, but
Yeah, no,
it's
God,
always
like and it's really effective. And if it
yes.
works for fucking Seinfeld, it works for me.
That
I'll
yeah,
take his money any day.
that is fair. So we have got about 9 minutes left in the Zoom call, and I try to keep the interviews to about 40 because that's kind of a good thing. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to talk about with contact juggling that you just like really geek out, like anything that you just love about it or you want to talk about with it?
I think the thing that I find most like interesting personally about it
Yeah.
is that what we're talking about is clothing it in a presentation. I'm
Yeah.
waiting to see someone take it from beyond a technique. And
Yeah.
actually, so contact juggling was invented by Michael Motion,
Hmm.
who was inspired by the death of his friend.
Right.
And he found this object, this beautiful bubble, and he developed this set of techniques that helped him to express like the fragility of life and the beauty of his friend's passing, right?
Wow.
And it was this real piece of like fucking art,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then this guy named James Ernst saw that routine and wrote a book detailing how to do the moves in
Uh-huh.
his routine,
Yeah.
which is how contact juggling started.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took all of the artistic and emotional context out of it and just presented it as technique.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm with you now. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
And then Michael Motion kind of got the shit because he was like, motherfucker, that's my routine that's very personal to me. And now
Yeah.
people are doing my thing. What the hell?
Without all
He's
the
since kind of calmed down a bit. And apparently he doesn't teach contact juggling, but I read a thing with somebody who did a workshop with him, and they said if you go up and like ask him a question, he'll answer it.
gotcha.
But he doesn't go out of his way to teach.
So
Um,
the first guy that was doing it, what was his name? Sorry.
Michael Motion,
And
Moschen, a very influential foundational mime, juggler, artist.
so when he
Uh,
was doing it
and
first,
so he was the
oh,
guy in the labyrinth when David Bowie did the crystal ball contact
oh,
juggling. He
that's
was the
cool.
guy doing the arms.
Gotcha. That's very cool. Go check that out, listeners. So
Yeah, go watch the labyrinth.
when he was doing that, when his friend passed away, was he doing it with one orb or did he have a few of them?
I think he started with one and then he did a multi-ball routine.
Gotcha.
Um, but like from a pure technique perspective, there are new things that have come along, but I've never seen anyone put the art back into it.
Interesting. And so, like, do you have any ideas as to what you sort of tossing around to maybe put some artistry or make it personal to you, anything like that?
It's this bubble routine,
Yeah.
this idea. I've also been working with slightly smaller balls to use. So in Magic, there's a I guess a corpus of moves that are like billiard ball moves,
Yeah.
where you're making balls appear and vanish and change color. And so like combining that with the contact juggling move set and the bubble idea to make a thing. But
That
the
sounds
problem
really
is
cool.
I've even still I've got this and I've got another stuff with like invisible thread and all kinds of like shit. I have all these ideas for
Yeah.
moves, but actually putting the plot around it is still I still need to finish the move set before I can do the plot. But
Oh, that
often
makes
that's not the
sense.
best way to do things.
Right,
In
right.
really good Magic, you do the plot and then the invisible moves you work around that,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Yeah.
and like if you're developing proper Magic. But this is kind of
Yeah.
like a weird hybrid of like Magic, visual presentation, plot, mime, character work. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be another couple of years. But I
Yeah.
want to take that to FISM, which is like the Olympics of Magic, and be
Oh,
like, boom. Here's
Yeah.
my PhD.
That's a good way to put it. This your opus kind of, right?
Well, yeah, it's like this is my addition to the art. This is something new
Yeah.
that I have come up with. Because that's what a PhD is. That's like answering a new question.
Ah.
So my question is, how do you take a giant sack of techniques
Yeah.
and stick some art back into it?
Yeah. Damn, that's really cool. I look forward to seeing that, to be honest.
I look forward to having the time to do it because
Yeah.
right now, if I have time to work on that, I have time to be finishing my house bus. So, I have to get my life in order before I can be do my art.
Yeah, yeah, that's the sad reality of being a human, I guess, isn't it?
Hey, man, it's
Um,
all about that laundry.
yeah, so about 4 minutes left. Anything else you want to cover?
No,
Just
I mean, I
anything that
think we
comes to
talked,
mind?
yeah, that where I wanted to talk about that where it came from and that idea of, you know, a
Yeah.
reason behind all of the moves and then just it being divorced now.
When was it created, that first the first couple of guys
It
that were
was a
doing it?
routine called Light. It
Hmm.
was in the 1980s ish. It was
So
in the
this is a
80s.
relatively recent new addition to Magic, isn't it?
Well, it's not really a magic, it's juggling more. Some
True.
magicians do it. But the
Yeah.
thing is, right, so coming from contact juggling and juggling into magic,
Yeah.
and there
Oh,
is
so that
so
was your
much left
gateway.
training involved in magic. Now, my
Yeah.
gateway was I wanted to stop being poor. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
So you got into the arts.
magic, magic, magic is breaking reality, and juggling is something that your friend does in college.
Good. Yeah, okay.
You know,
I didn't realize. Yeah, yeah, I'm with you now.
but I mean, I'd done like improv and all kinds of stuff for years and years and years, so it
Yeah.
was a bit easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that's because the relatively low. I mean, it takes practice to learn cards, but you can learn a card trick in 20 minutes,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to if I take 20 minutes to teach you one move and then tell you to go away for a couple weeks and work on it,
Yeah.
it's just
You have to
just
put in
not.
the time, right?
Yeah. I mean, saying that some of like the card cheating stuff is up there. There is card stuff that's really, really hard.
Yeah.
There's billiard ball stuff that's relatively difficult. But
Mm. Are
yeah,
billiard balls
it's
bigger than contact juggling orbs?
they're smaller. They're kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
about like 50 to 60. A normal contact juggling ball will either be 75 millimeters for multi-ball or between 100 and 120 for single
Wow.
ball. Oh, we didn't
Yeah.
even talk about the single ball.
Not really, no. Yeah, we did a little bit, but
Well, we can do another one about mime and robot dance juggling. It'll be great.
yeah, that sounds good to me. All right, so we're covered for the end stretch. I really appreciate you taking the
Yeah, man.
time out of your day to join us.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you so much.
we let's quickly have you get your plugs in again.
Yeah, so plugs, I've got Laugh, Cry, or Die, which is coming out soon-ish. And I'll be around most of the Fringe festivals in New Zealand this summer. I'll be at Circulation Festival, probably be at Ulm again, hopefully, and Shipwrecked Festival. So I've got a little bit of a summer holiday tour circuit that I'll be doing stuff
Fantastic.
at. So yeah, come hang out in Contact Juggle. I'd love to teach you.
And social media pages. You've got a Facebook and an
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, Steve Wilbury Entertainer is me, or Steve_Wilbury on Insta. I'm very bad at social because I'm very busy.
We
But
have to be like one man businesses as entertainers nowadays, don't we?
I really wish I had a social media manager. It would be so dope.
That'd be the dream. I
I
think
just
the
That's
first
what
person,
AI is for. That's what AI is for.
yeah, the first person to come up with a legitimate business model to be amateur sort of semi-pro entertainers social media manager will be making a
Yeah,
killing. So
drop us a line. I'd
yeah,
love to
exactly.
know.
TaylorRiddleComedy@gmail.com. Email me if you're interested in that. Um,
Info@stevewilbury.com. Let me know, please. I'm
we're
tired.
betting over you. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Steve. Thanks very
All
much
right,
for
thanks a
joining
lot, man. That was
us.
good fun. Thanks so much.
And we are back. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly learned quite a lot. I didn't realize how kind of new and how rare the art of contact juggling was. And Steve gave us some really cool insights into how you take a magic show from being like okay or good and make it like amazing. I think Steve gave all his plugs at the end of that, so I am just going to chuck his links down in the show notes, so definitely check those out. Check out Steve's podcast. Steve, we didn't really get into it in this episode, but Steve has had a lot of, I'm not quite sure, like injury is maybe not the correct word for it. I think he has a chronic disability, I believe was the term he used, and I think that, coupled with a couple of other things, resulted in him having a lot of really interesting medical mishaps, I suppose might be the word. He has a show called Straight Outta Surgery in which he talks about being the world's most operated on magician. I saw a few snippets of the material from this at an open mic night that he kind of joined us on, and man, some of the stuff that guy's been through is crazy. And the fact that he's come out of it the other side being as kind of like upbeat and like just like kind as he is really inspirational. So definitely keep an eye out for any time you see Steve on, like you said, any of the festivals. If you see his solo show, he usually does one at Little Andromeda in Christchurch. Definitely do yourself the favour and get along. Very, very funny guy, very sweet guy, and evidently more than happy to teach you about contact juggling if you ask him about it. So that's all for this week's Riddle Me This. I'm recording this a few weeks into the past, so I'm not quite sure what I've got going on at the moment. Hopefully it's something interesting. Hopefully I've got some new stuff, some new cool things for you to come check out. Best way to see if I have or I haven't is follow me on social media at Taylor Riddle Comedy. Facebook is probably the best place to see all the gigs that I've got coming up in one easy place. As always, really appreciate your time listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've come away from this podcast having learnt something new. And I hope the rest of the week is good to you. I'll catch up with you next time. Ruddler out.